So today is November 7th, and I have made preparations for a pull in probably late December, whenever the ground is really and truly frozen. The boulder is going to come down, hopefully down this trench that I've made for it. Hopefully it will be all frozen and maybe even some ice on it, and we'll end up down in that spot there. The pond is a seasonal pond. It fills in early spring and stays filled until about August, and then it drains. So it's not a year-round pond, unfortunately. There's some very coarse sandy soil that allows it to drain out. For the pool, I've got that tree over there and that tree over there. Because of the distance, I'll probably only be able to use 2 of my cable winches. When I start the work, that boulder may be frozen to the ground, so I'll have to use both of those. I may use one of my smaller winches to get on a tree nearby to just pry it off of the ice. Probably even have to use my tractor to get that ice bond broken. But once it's moving, it should slide down there. Under the boulder here, you can see all the dirt that got plowed up by pulling it up out of the hole. This kind of plowed dirt means you're constantly having to pull uphill because of this ramp there. So I'm going to remove all of that, and then hopefully we won't get that plowing once the ground is frozen. There, that should make it easier to start the pull. A few of you who watched my last video on the old man and the boulder were interested in seeing the follow-up to it, where I actually tried to move it downhill to a final position by the pond. I had a plan that I was going to wait until the ground froze, because getting it up out of that hole onto the ground, it was really doing a lot of plowing through the soil. And I thought once the ground was frozen, it would slide much easier on the frozen soil than it did through the earth. So I planned to wait until a little bit before Christmas, hoping the ground would freeze. Unfortunately, nature didn't cooperate, and we got the most snow in a single snowfall that we've had in the 33 years that we've lived here. We got various places, 28 other places, 34 inches, and I simply couldn't get back to this site to work on it. Also, I was very concerned that the snow came so early that the ground hadn't frozen yet, so even if I could have gotten back here, didn't have frozen ground yet. So I waited and waited and waited. It's now the 13th of March, and we're into mud season. I came out, I put the winches on it, I tried to get it to move, it wouldn't move. Going a lot farther out there, probably 70 or 80 feet to the trees that I'm pulling against, and that used up all of my chain, so I was only able to put 2 winches on it. So I figured maybe it's just not enough force. So I got a bottle jack and put it under that, tried to lift it, still couldn't budge it. At this point I figured, I screwed up. When I got the boulder out of the hole, I should have put some type of timbers under it to get it up off of the ground. Because what happened was, at least a foot of the soil did freeze eventually and became hard as concrete, and the boulder was stuck by that frozen soil right to it. So it was like one mass of boulder plus soil, and I couldn't get it to move. I even took my tractor and tried to move it with the tractor, it wouldn't go. So all season long the temperature hardly ever got above 30 degrees. Finally, yesterday it just shot up from 30 degrees to 60 degrees, stayed there all day. I came out and put everything on it, and I was able to get a little pop where it came off of the frozen soil and is now loose. Unfortunately, we're now officially right into the middle of mud season. So the place where I've got to stand to work the winches is now all mud. I have a very short window here where under the 2 or 3 inches of mud there's still frozen soil, so I can get it to slide on that. But the temperature today got up to 40 degrees, so that warmth is going to go down through the mud and melt more of that frozen ground into mud, making it very hard to pull. So what I have to do is get this over to there where we still got snow on the ground and hopefully protected frozen soil. I have to do that pretty much today. So going to be working on moving it. It's going to be real boring, but I just wanted to give you a progress report so you know what's happening with my attempt to move the boulder. Time for a progress report. As you can see, I've dragged the boulder about 12 feet, and it has dug in a little bit, but I got it over to here, and I thought, great, now my problems are behind me, because I had it on top of the frozen ground, and it was starting to slide nicely on the frozen ground. I gave a few more tugs, and then something happened that I just wasn't really prepared for. The ice, or the frozen ground, turns out it was only about 5 inches thick. And once I started the boulder moving on top of it, all of a sudden the boulder just crunched down through the ice, and it sank down about a foot. And watching that happen, it was just kind of impressive. You know, you've seen boulders roll down a hill or slide, but this just sank into the ground rather suddenly. Made a little bit of a noise, but now I'm faced with the prospect of trying to pull it against a level of frozen ground rather than riding on top of it. I have to plow it through that, so it's going to make the job a lot harder. So I've reached a point of dilemma. As I said, the front dug down into the dirt. When I tried to pull it horizontally, all that ended up happening was the back ended up flipping up. So if I continue pulling, either this is going to suddenly slip off that way and put me on my back, or it's going to flop over. If I keep pulling, this ugly side will be exposed, which has a big gouge cut out of it and not very attractive. But if I do flip it over, I'll be on this much smoother side and the pulling will be a lot easier. So here you can see the bottom side of the boulder. There's a big place that got broken out, and that gives you an edge that's been digging in and another edge that's been digging in, but not really an attractive place to sit. At this point, it's pretty obvious that I'm going to pull it over with just my little mule and the small 1/4-inch chain. When it does flop over, it's liable to crush some of this stuff. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove all of it and just get it out of the way so that the little mule does the work. Whoa. thud. Okay. Discouraging break for today. We'll start again tomorrow. I did come out and fasten 3 of my cable winches to it. Unfortunately, I had neglected that it was going to get below freezing substantially, and the boulder was once again frozen to the ground. So even though I had 2 3-ton winches and a 2-ton winch pulling on it, I could not get the boulder to move. It was just solidly cemented to the frozen ground. So it's gotten up to over 50 degrees today, and I'm going to try again. Hopefully it will come loose. Well, finally making some progress, but only because the frozen ground has shoved forward as a plate, leaving this big hole underneath there. So I'm going to continue pulling everything forward, and at some point hopefully we'll override that frozen ground. As you can see, I've pulled enough that I have very little throw left. You really don't want to pull this up snug against the winch, otherwise you're screwed. To deal with this situation, I'm going to have to take the winch out of the pull it out, and reconnect it to the chain. But when I disconnect the winch, the chain is going to try to sag, and with 70 feet of chain out there weighing probably 100 pounds, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull it taut. So the thing you do is you take a short length of chain and you fasten it into the same hook, and you run the chain out and you fasten it to your main chain. You use a grab hook so that you can fasten onto the chain as far away as you can. So I'll run this out. You can see that the capture cable has allowed a little bit of sag into the main chain. However, it's nowhere near down onto the snow, so saved a lot of pulling to re-establish the tension. Got the winch fastened back up to the main line, so now we can begin cranking and transfer the tension from the capture winch into the cable winch and the main line. There you can see the capture winch is starting to sag, so we'll just go ahead and really tension this up so that the capture line is free. Now we've got enough slack that we can release the capture chain. So far I've managed to drag the boulder about 25 feet, and you can see it's really digging a ditch as it goes. But today is a special day because we're actually going to start going downhill. And in this case, by we, I mean I have help. And I don't mean the dog. I mean my wife is coming, and I'm going to get her to pull on one of the winches while I pull on another. stand, or get to the other one. Oh, okay, but see how that other one's really sagging?
Okay. Oh, okay. I gotta go down that pit.
Yeah. That's why you hang on to the
Thanks a
cable
lot.
and chain.
I'm thinking I got the suck ass right this job. I mean, there's like a volcano of mud here. I'm supposed to get in some kind of position. All right. This is your dream come true. I'm out here actually winching something. All these years, and I've never done one of these little jobs. Uh-oh, what was that?
That's just me. Chain moved a bit. Okay, now back to the other one. This one's sagging again. That's the spirit. You want me to do the middle one?
No, I just have to. Let's row the boat.
Yep. Reminiscent of Ben-Hur.
I know the other one's flat again.
Yep.
Are you doing time lapse?
What's that?
Is it time lapse or what?
No. But I can speed it up when I record it, or when I produce the thing.
I guess it's tight enough. Hope the tree doesn't come down. Can't loosen them up like they will.
Whoa. It moves.
Yeah. You must have, because they got loose of it. Guess we had all three tight now, huh?
Yeah. Okay. The boulder is in its final position for the foreseeable future. You can see it's left quite a trench dragging it down through the mud. So the next step will be to redo the grading, get it back into final conditions, and put wildflower seed over the whole area. The pond has started to fill back up. It probably won't get much deeper than this, and it is an ephemeral. So it's going to be something we can enjoy. It's already got frogs and tadpoles in it, some of which overwintered. So we're going to delay publishing this video until after hopefully some of the wildflowers have started to bloom, and then maybe you can see a nice finished product. Well, I'm going to make this the last clip for the video. The pond is kind of at its summer high. Rained recently and got a little bit muddy. I did plant a bunch of wildflowers, and I was waiting to finish this video hoping that some of those would be in bloom, but so far they've been pretty paltry. We'll show what we've got. These little purple things with a little froggy inspecting them. They're kind of pretty, but need a lot more of them to really be appreciated. Got these little yellow things and little sort of pinkish things. Got these little yellow ones again. Bunch of these purple things and some pink. So that's it for now.